All right, we're back for Content is for Closers. Have an exciting episode with Ramona Ortega that we're very happy to share with you, and I want to get into it, Carlton. Before we do, Carlton just reminded me this is our second take of doing this intro because I forgot the first time. If you are listening to this episode, if you've listened to it regularly and you've enjoyed, you've heard all the interviews we've done with so many great guests, and you've gotten even one little bit of value, then I need you to do something for me. I need you to pause this episode or don't pause it, whatever. But right now, open up your podcast app. Open up Apple Podcasts, preferably, or you can do it in Spotify as well. Go down and give us a 5-star review. It's so easy, and you're so lazy and ungrateful if you can't do this for us. I'd rather you just not listen to future episodes if you can't do this for us. But we are at around 70, I believe. We need to be at 100 by the end of the year. That's our goal. We're going to keep pushing. I don't want to hassle you on these episodes and ask over and over. So if you could just go do it right now, we won't even have to bring it up again. And it will be easier for everyone. So anyway, that's
tell the people what the prize is, Adam. If
you go in between reviews 70 and 100, if you go in and leave a review, whatever you leave, I will read here on the podcast for our listeners. So there's a number of ways you could go about
as long as it's G-rated.
I would say you could get up into the PG
or PG-13.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you could get into the, but or I can edit some things, but there's a number of ways you could go with this. You could be funny, you can flex your humor muscles on us. You can teach us something, tell us how terrible we are. That's accepted, like anything like that.
And you got to put a time limit on it. It can't just be like
yeah, I mean, I'm going to read it.
Tale of Two Cities.
Or somebody smart, this is a business podcast, is going to advertise for their business. And that's probably what I would do. And I would read that for free.
Now you're making it too easy.
I know, but it's out there for anyone. So anyway, that's out there. Go do it right now. All right, Carlton, you heard this episode with Ramona. You started, even before we were off on air, you started talking about some of the things that it triggered for you in terms of thoughts. And I was like, please save that. So what made, what did this prompt you to think about?
Yeah, so it was a really good episode. I think what she's doing is awesome in not just the Web3 space, but just looking at ways that she can help people with maybe less income or lower income find accessibility towards or find a way to make this more accessible, because Web3 you've seen it where it's like something new every single day. There's so many things that are hard to know, like, am I throwing my money away when I do this? Probably. And there's aspects to it that feel a little bit like lottery, like you're playing lottery. And so, with the lottery, people feel like they're literally just, wasting money. So I think what she was talking about made me think of was content is the one thing that represents something that's the lowest barrier to entry. Not just consuming content, but also interacting with it. And I think it'll be interesting to see how some of these
go into that. What do you mean by that lowest barrier of entry in terms of what?
Yeah, so with time specifically, if somebody is willing to pay money or to buy a coin that's they're not sure if they're going to win or not, in some ways they're throwing that away because the risk is super high. Mm-hmm. But if you can engage or spend time with and develop a relationship in the context of content, that's not necessarily wasted. I think we kind of see it as like some people it's just entertainment. But I think with Web3 you see this with gaming already. People spending time engaging with content could actually be verified and be used to make money or to develop some measurable amount of wealth or gain assets. So I'm kind of just shooting in the dark a little bit with the projection on that, but I think that's something interesting that I see as a potential trend in the Web3 space.
Yeah, to full disclosure, we've done a handful of Web3 interviews and haven't aired them because they felt a little rug pulley or they felt a little bit empty in a lot of ways. And Ramona's obviously does not feel that way at all. I think, you talked about the lottery mentality. Morgan Housel talks about that in The Psychology of Money. And Ramona is offering an off-ramp from that, like, I need to hit a home run or I'm not going to be able to pay my bills, into here is a sustainable way to both build wealth, manage that wealth, and potentially be a part of a new economy, whether you agree with Web3 or not, that these communities, for the most part, haven't had access to previously. So that's what I really appreciated about her ethos, and this falls in line with several other episodes that I would call content for good. If you want to like this, she has a very similar mentality to Ruben Harris at Career Karma, Claire Charal at Top Knot, and these are folks who are using content to not just pad their pockets, not just be a force of economic good, but actually have impact on people's lives. And that's what I appreciated from the Ramona interview. On today's episode of Content is for Closers, we have Ramona Ortega. Ramona is the founder of WealthBuild.ai and My Money, My Future, where she is helping typically underrepresented folks find and sustain success in their personal finances. Before this, she was the entrepreneur in residence at Aslo, a corporate attorney, and prior to that, a director of the Human Rights Foundation. Her impressive resume is matched only by the intensity with which she is helping her community, and she joined the show to share why she launched the companies that she has, the challenges of educating previously financially struggling communities through content, and where she sees the overlap of fintech and content heading in the future. We got into a ton of stuff, as you can tell, and I personally enjoyed getting to know and chat with Ramona as a fellow Boricua, and I'm very excited to introduce her to all of you. So, without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Ramona Ortega. All right, we've got Ramona Ortega here from My Money, My Future, and also Wealth Build joining the show. Ramona, thank you so much for spending time with us.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
I stumbled over myself there at the beginning because there's so many different places that I could have said you're from or have done, and obviously you're working on a number of different projects across Web3 and making financial instruments more accessible and inclusionary. But I would just be curious, how do you describe yourself? What's the background that you tell people when you're giving them the quick 411 on Ramona?
Yeah. So I think the short answer is, activist turned corporate lawyer turned technologist and innovator. And through that, I would say my focus has always been and probably will continue to be closing the racial wealth gap. I think that's something that I've worked on as an activist. And when I say that, I was 10 years doing international human rights work, working on a number of policies that looked at sort of disparate impact in policies, and then particularly as they impacted economic policies. So I was a delegate to the World Conference Against Racism in Durban, South Africa in 2000 when people were talking about universal basic income and reparations and the wealth gap, but it was radical. And now it's not. So I later ended up going to law school and working in corporate law, primarily in securities, but also in bankruptcy, and worked on a number of really sort of great cases. Really coming out of law school, I was able to work on Madoff, ended
Wow.
up working on MF Global a little bit. So yeah, there's had that experience in sort of inside the markets and capital markets, and got a really great education both at Fordham and then also at the SEC and in bankruptcy, and decided at some point that there was a real need and a missing gap in the market, particularly in fintech. And this was 90 no wait sorry 2013, 14. I was starting to think about it. We launched the first iteration in 2017.
Okay.
And that again, I that was very early fintech, right? It was I call it V1 of fintech. We are now V1 being sort of dismantling the banking system, V2 really verticalizing. So things like, Betterment, the rise of the robo advisor. And now I think we're alongside really kind of Web3. We have, I think, V3 of fintech. And for me, it's despite all of that, we still haven't quite solved one of the biggest problems, which is the racial wealth gap. And so, you can build great products, but if they're not built by and for a community or to solve a particular problem, I think that, that's where the challenges come in and where we're not seeing as much impact as perhaps we should at this point in time.
Yeah, and I think that's where I think we can pull on in just a little bit what you're doing with Wealth Build. I want to hear how some of those things could potentially solve or hope to solve some of that gap. But I have to ask you before that. That is such a disparate background. You started, activism. You can see going into corporate law, but typically corporate attorneys and like bleeding tech innovation aren't thought of in the same sentence. How did that happen for you? Or what made you curious and what made you pursue that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always just been a curious person, and for a lot of reasons, I'm probably the least risk adverse person I
Okay.
know. I take very calculated risks. I'm not, out here doing crazy things, but I will say that because of my background, I grew up, very working class, very much sort of from the neighborhood. And I feel like because I didn't, necessarily come from a lot, I have less to lose in some ways. I think you can go either way. Some people become very conservative and very risk adverse. I kind of went the opposite, which is where can I go? What can I do? And I think at this point in my life, too, I feel like I've accumulated enough experience to almost take on anything, right? I started actually before I was sort of in human rights work. I was a journalist, and I think at the core, that still continues to be a factor in my life. It's like I'm a writer and I'm a translator of things. And I think that worked very well. So even with finance, right? I mean, I think throughout all of the stuff that you see on My Money and what we're doing with Wealth Build, it's about how do you make this relevant, right? How does this affect real people? How do you translate information, particularly financial jargon and financial information, into a way that people can really understand? And I think that's something that I've done well over the course of my career, and I think it's something that continues to be very helpful in what I'm doing around wealth building, especially in sort of the Web3 environment.
Yeah. Okay. So let's lean into that a little bit. So you mentioned there, My Money and My Money My Future is the company. Can you just tell us a little bit about how that got started, what the intention was, and who you serve with that?
Sure. I mean, we started initially, and this story's out there, which is, I started asking my colleagues who were other corporate lawyers, Latinas, kind of the 1%, right? I mean, really, there's not that many corporate Latino lawyers on Wall Street.
Mhm.
And so I would ask them, what are you doing with your portfolios? How are you investing? And I think the overwhelming response was, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know much about that. My husband does that. My dad does that for me, right?" So it there wasn't an ownership in that. And I thought, "Wow, that's interesting because, we're a smart bunch here, clearly." And and I realized that because of how we grow up, right? I mean, all of us, I think the Latino community in general, we don't talk about money. There's a number of reasons, including structural discrimination. We haven't had that much money. I mean, talk about intergenerational wealth. We just haven't had that experience. So therefore, there's no reason to be talking about it. And from our parents' point of view, I mean, I can't blame my parents. You can't pass down what you don't know, right? And so I think for me, it was like, oh, there's a really nuanced perspective here that no one in fintech is capturing, and that it's not about, oh, we have to dumb it down, or we have to, that these products aren't for everyone. No, it's that we need to be able to translate how these products help you build wealth, how to use them, why they're important, how money is important to really achieve sort of your end goal. Something I say a lot, and I'm writing a book, and part of what we're trying to break down are some of these larger concepts, and it's just money is just a means to an end, but you have to really understand what your end game is, and it's different for everyone. Some people want financial security at like all costs. Others want financial freedom, whatever that means. Some people want to live their best life with the brand new, Louis Vuitton bag. Like that's fine. It's your money, right? But how do you get there, right? And then how do you build that intergenerational piece? And it's
Mhm.
something we just don't talk about. So when I started looking around and talking to people and realizing there's a huge gap, The other thing is that we just have a demographic shift. And I mean, I feel like I've been repeating this for like the last 10 years. I'm like, does no one look at the numbers? this this country is overwhelmingly going to be Latino very soon, and it already is in a majority of states. And they're not necessarily immigrant Latinos. It's not enough to just be like, oh, let's put it in Spanish, right?
Right.
That's not, we're talking about people like me. I'm fourth generation. It's folks who've been here who are bicultural in every aspect. It's not just about Spanish, it's about how we think about money. There are nuanced behaviors and norms that, in terms of the way we talk about money, the way we think about money, the way we think about retirement. I mean, I think most families and Latino families, and I'll even say, having so many conversations, a lot of immigrant families, you don't think about your parents kind of in a home
Mhm.
somewhere, right? We think about, oh, of course, they're going to live with my mom, I mean, my sister, or they're going to live with someone, right?
That's
Like
such a
that.
that's such a huge thing. Yeah, like my parents just went through this, and conversations with other folks, like nobody understood that culturally it's just such a, it's expected for sure that that's going to be the primary option, and maybe something happens otherwise. But yeah, going back to what you were saying about translating, there's all these nuances, right? That like are just different.
That's right. And so there was an opportunity, and so the first iteration of the My Money My Future was like, how can we just translate this stuff? So it's a newsletter, it's a media project, etc. Then it became very clear that no, people want to actually know how to do this, right? So it's not enough to be like, hey, you should open up a retirement account. Hey, you should start a brokerage account or get a will. It's like, oh, okay, but how do I do that? Because that's the piece that a lot of these fintechs miss. It's like it's not enough to make it just accessible. People don't know what to do with a lot of these things, right? Or they're like, well, I don't know if I want to buy universal or term. Who do you turn to for financial advice? And I mean, I can ask you, right? Who do you turn to, Adam?
But, well, me, I turned to my dad, and that's part of the whole thing, right? Like, because the other thing I think that's beautiful about your translation, your use of the word translation, is like, yes, I guess there is Spanish to English, but there's also, like you said, translating the fact that our money is our money, is my money, is my parents' money, is, and I'm second gen, so there's just a communal part of the way that we live, and it's not a good or bad, it's just different. And so yeah, the way that I learned all of my financial habits, good or bad or indifferent, were because that's where I learned them from. And
Right.
it's just now as an adult that 32 years old, that I've begun to learn, oh, there are other investment vehicles, other etc. And most of that is not um, inherent in the way that we're raised up. I don't think for most of us.
No, and I mean, you're even lucky that you have a dad that you could talk to about
Yeah,
this, right? I would, I mean, I think the motto is, if you don't learn about it at home, which you did, but if you don't learn about it at home, you don't learn about it at school, that's for sure. And I've
right.
talked to plenty of MBA students who have no clue how to start invest and manage their own portfolios. Then you don't learn about it. And the way you learn is by making all these mistakes with your money, and then being like, oh, I wish I should have, I wish I did this, I should have done that. And that's sort of how I started the company originally, which was, what would I have told my 20-year-old self? What do people need to know so that that they're living their best life in their 40s and 50s, and that they're not worried about money and they're not anxious about money. And the thing is, having talked to so many people, and especially with communities of color, we just start later because no, we're not talking about this stuff. And then there's an intimidation factor of like shame around not knowing. So feeling like, oh, I don't want to ask a stupid question, I don't want to look stupid, I don't know what that is, so I'm not going to engage in it. I mean, things like, I didn't know what a match was, so I didn't take it, right? Or, cashing out a retirement account instead of rolling it over. I mean, there's all these things that I think, people who have financial advisors, obviously those financial advisors take care of that stuff for them. But my goal was always to be like, how do we become a financial advisor in someone's pocket? So it
Mm,
erases the shame, it makes the products relevant to their life. So it understands that, for example, that your parents might live with you, or that you might be financially responsible for more than the people that live in your home, right? So, or I mean, whatever it may be, we're trying to take those things into consideration in the financial advice that we're giving, or the guidance, really, because we don't give, it's not traditional financial advice in the sense that we're telling you where to invest.
Right.
Okay. um, I think some of this, I would say probably 70% of it is jargon. Most
Mm.
people just, like, even when I said that, right, I'm like, well, financial advice, unfortunately, it has been codified as only stock advice. So when I say that, people are like, oh, you're going to invest for me. I'm like, no, financial advice has many things. If you want a broker, or if you want to go that route, there's plenty of options. We're not going to tell you what stock to buy. What we're going to tell you is that, hey, you have a 401k. Are you matching it? Do you want to open up a brokerage account? This is why a brokerage account can be useful. This is how you can use it.
Mm.
You should have an IRA, because everybody's going to leave a job at some point. So you want to roll that over so you don't have three or four retirement accounts sitting out there, right? What's a 529? What kind of life insurance should you get? At this point, still, there is no tech company, fintech company, that's doing this at scale. What they're doing is they'll give you advice within their platform about, let's say, investing. So, you got some of the robo advisors who will give you, but they're not able to answer any question around money. And that's the kind of thing that we're looking at, right? The Siri of money, right? Hey Siri, what's settlement?
Mm.
What do I do with that money? My mom just passed away. The house is in my name, but etc. Like, there's so many money questions that come up every day, and what we end
Yeah.
up doing is going to our friends, going to Twitter, doing some research, but there's no definitive place where we're like, that we trust, that we can ask these questions without kind of either a sale pitch, or or feeling like, do I trust this information? Are they just, like, a lot of people already know this, but for example, if you have life insurance, you can get some financial advice, but it's those are people that are selling you products, their
Yeah.
own
They have
financial
incentives.
products. There's an incentive. We don't have, I mean, obviously we have an affiliate marketing model, which is norm. I mean, everyone's doing that now, embedded in their own structures, but we don't have to. That's not the point, right? And I think
Right.
that what we were able to do now, especially with the rise of AI and blockchain, is to bring those components together and to really fulfill the original mission. Deciding to do that in a new company for a number of reasons, but we're really excited about what we can build um, with the new technology, and the kind of transparency, and governance, and really trying to create a community around money that's larger than just the Latino community. When we talk about the racial wealth gap, we're talking about women, we're talking about Latinos, African Americans, primarily, because we're the ones that are most affected, and we're also the largest demographic, right? So if we can fix
Mm.
that, then the tide, the rising tide, right? We will see we can see a move in the needle, and I think that's the goal.
Yeah. So I want to get to how the new solution using the blockchain and using AI, how that works. But I'd be remiss if most of the folks who listen to this are marketers, are operators themselves,
Mhm.
and so what's really interesting about your story is you started as a media play, and then at some point it transitioned into this tech platform. It reminds me a lot of Career Karma, how they started with their podcast and their media, and then they flipped as well. How did that transition happen for you, and sort of why did it happen? Is it just like you kind of just said that you just saw the gap, or like what led to that?
Yeah, I mean, you talk to your users. I think one of the things that makes us, in particularly, close to our users, is that we spend a lot of time talking to people. I'm part of the community that I'm trying to serve. I was serving my own,
Mm.
I was solving my own problem, one, and all my friends are my customers.
Right.
My network, my family, I'm all around me. And because I'm so passionate about solving for this, I can literally, I'll strike up a conversation with a waitress where I'm eating. I'm like, hey, who do you turn to talk about money? And you get so
Mhm.
much information, right? Because it's such a need. I don't have to go and validate, like, whether or not people need this. It's so clear, right? I mean, how many subreddit groups on personal finance, how many uh, influencers on TikTok now talking about finance. Right now, it's become the norm. Um, and so I think once we had we used to do a lot of live events, and so we had a big event in Los Angeles that was an all-day event. Like 200 women come out, and I think it was then that I realized, oh, this is much bigger than a media play. That people want to know how, they want to know what to buy, and then as soon as they answered that question, they got another question. Oh, okay, so if I get my credit, then if I want to buy a house, what should I do there? Right? So it's like, no, they really do need a place where they can just get all their financial advice in one place. And so it was really clear. I mean, I would say probably like 8, 9 months in that I was like, oh, this needs to be more than
Wow.
just this play. And then for a number of reasons, including, like, I mean, I don't have to tell you, funding for women of color, especially back when we started. I mean, it's terrible. It's still terrible. I mean, it's less than 1%. So we actually haven't moved the numbers that much. I think more people are aware of it, but I don't think it's actually changed anything. Which takes me to Web3, right? Which in
Ah,
some
okay.
ways it was like, what can we build that has the least amount of resistance in some ways, right? Like that we can independently either fund and or engage with people in a different way, a different metric system. And also because I've also been a blockchain fanatic for many years. I mean, in fact, we took a about 2015, I think it was, we took a group of developers, um, folks of color, to an Ethereum hackathon, and we won second place. And that was because I was like, we need to be in this space. We need to be here because it's happening. I mean, I was like, cryptocurrencies is going to happen. Like that's not even
Yeah.
like right. And I had bought Bitcoin early on, like it was probably around 2012. So I knew, because one of the reasons I was interested in it, I was like, it's going to get regulated at some point. If I go work for the SEC, I'd be interested in
Right.
doing,
Right.
heading up something that works along these lines. So I started buying stuff, and I bought Ethereum, and then we won second place. And I realized like the blockchain was really where it was going. I was like, oh, the smart
Mm.
contracts for legal stuff? Come on. I mean, it's just a no-brainer. And so, and we had won second place for a project which maybe, at some point I'll pick up again, which was Persona ID. And the idea was really about how do you distribute public benefits on the blockchain. Um, and
Mm.
mark my words, because I'm sure someone else will will pick this up. But
Yeah.
um, so and so the when things started really, I think, shifting into kind of Web3, um, maybe like late last year, in terms of like not just nerdy folks talking about, but like, okay, this is actually
Right.
happening. And
Cultural
when I
moment.
got my mom asking me what an NFT was, I was like, okay, I think it's time. And look, I've also been very involved in cooperatives. I mean, again, back to my sort of very like liberal beginnings, right? It's like, how do we form cooperatives and companies that really help workers, right? Especially low income workers. So we had worked with a bunch of organizations doing domestic worker organizations forming cooperatives. This, I mean, a DAO is a perfect cooperative, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Good point.
so it's interesting because so much of what we do in fintech is not new. It's the experience part. It's making it more accessible, right? I mean, none of the stuff that we're doing in fintech is all that new. It's just we're creating more accessibility through technology, and bringing down those barriers. And the same thing with a DAO, right? I mean, it's very interesting. And I would say my only so one thing that I've noticed lately and I've been worried about is the rapid um, sort of increase of derivative blockchain, I guess, just projects, initiatives,
Mm.
that it's moving so fast and consolidating so quickly. I mean, granted, when we're the metaverse of blockchain and Web3, it seems like everyone's talking about it. It seems totally normative, except that that is an echo chamber, right? I mean,
Right. Right.
literally, it's probably like 1%, if that. Granted, there's billions of dollars being put into it, but my point is that I go back to, how does this change people's lives? Like, seriously, how does this change? Who cares that we can do all this? We still can't seem to send money across the border for cheap, yet XRP exists, right? Because, like, we're not solving it for real people. And so so what I'm really looking at is, like, how do we have these cases where we can really prove out what the value is to a normal person, right? A working class
Yeah,
folks.
and I think that's where I'm most curious about what you're doing with Wealth Build, which is you can explain it, but essentially you're bringing what you had been working on before onto Web3, onto the blockchain. I guess two
Mhm.
questions. First, you talked about moving to Web3 in order to sort of give yourself access or give others like you access to funding. Also, we can cut anything out. So, but I'm just gonna ask: do you have any concern around? So, like, yes, it's more accessible in the sense that you can just sell NFT, you can for function, or you could raise it out. But at the back of that, like you said, it's consolidated around the same old faces in terms of the like. Is there any concern there? And well, yeah. Let me just stop there.
Sure, there's tons of concern from me,
Okay.
that so and you can see I've done tons of articles around this, like, kind of crypto
Yes.
and women of color in particular. So I want us to be in it because I think we need to be there if we're going to use it in ways that are going to solve our
Mhm.
problems. So that's one. So the way that we're doing that is, we're again, it's a combo. There is a little bit of Web 2 on the platform. So our chatbot, Yoli is the name of our chatbot. Um, you know, it's the accessible part, right? It's saying we can actually build at scale a chatbot that is a Siri for money. We can do that. That's now a possibility. Um, we can raise money independently in some ways using NFTs as a subscription, right? As the access point, right? So, and then that NFT in and of itself becomes valuable, or at least we hope, right? Like every NFT, you want it to increase in value. We will also be rewarding people to by taking action on the site. So when you update your budget, when you go through one of our money maps, that's what we're calling the plans, right? When you're taking action on your money, you're also earning our own token. That token can then be sold, or have some liquidity on the chain eventually. um,
Cool.
and you'll have some ownership stake, right? And we're still figuring that out, because again, it's not going to
Sure.
be a true DAO. That particular piece won't be a true DAO, but there is, with the NFT, what kind of rights, whether it's product roadmap, building community. An idea is that, like, once we have that infrastructure in there, then we can start to bank the unbanked. I mean, to me, that's one of the, like, I mean, I don't need to become a company just to do that, because this is what I love about the chain and all of the sort of an AI and all of these new technologies. You can really bring all of that together, right? With API integrations, with, sort of scalability issues. There's so many things that you can do together on one platform. So I think that, again, you're right. There is a fear that we might miss out on folks who really need us, who even that kind of access is not enough, right? And so there is things that we're thinking about, right, in terms of, um, just the platform itself, and the technology, and not making it too complicated. I mean, you even know this, right? I mean, you can even just say, oh, I have a wallet now. Well, do you have a MetaMask wallet? Are you on the Poly chain? Are you on this chain? Are you bridging? Are you staking? Like, oh my God. And I'm pretty smart, and it's overwhelming, right?
Oh, it's super, and especially for the Latino community, or I'm sure other, all of those words are just mental
Right.
blocks that are going
Exactly.
to cause friction
Exactly.
between me and actually using the product. So that's where like your bot is so interesting to me because I don't have to know necessarily anything
Yeah.
about that to onboard.
Correct.
But then I'm sure maybe it can or maybe it will help me and teach me how to use those things along the way. So
That's right.
that's really
And
exciting.
so when you're engaging, even as we think about, so when you sign up, for example, and you get an account, etc., and you want to participate in the rewards program, and again, we're used to rewards, right? We understand that, like, oh, you spend
Sure.
money on a card, and etc. But in this instance, you'll be getting tokens, and even that. So it's not like they're like it's not like you're like, oh, you have to buy a token. It's like, no, if you sign in, every time you sign in, you're going to get one token. Every time you take this out,
Hmm.
every time you answer a question, because we're also creating a database, right, of information that we can aggregate and feed into our AI and our machine learning. You'll get rewards. We will make it easy also for people to understand. So like, oh, okay, this is a token, and then I trade it in for cash. It's like going. Remember back in the day when you went to Chuck E. Cheese and you got their little tickets, and then you got to go and
Yeah.
trade it in.
Yes.
I mean, again, it's how we frame stuff. I think the problem is that, and this happens in finance all the time. People want to think they're smart. They're like, oh, hedge funds, liquidity, blah, blah, blah. It's like
Right.
all
Right.
the, I get it. I was part of it, but at the end of the day, that stuff is not that complicated when you break it down. And so our goal and really our responsibility is to break it down so that it becomes accessible. And I'll be the first one to say that I'm very big on having skin in the game. As people interact on our platform, they are getting skin in the game. They're going to have a crypto wallet that will be essentially automated because will open it up for them through the our platform. They're going to earn some tokens. They might buy an NFT if they want to. That'll make it simple for them to understand that the NFT is giving them a membership. It's just a membership, right?
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's like you can pay for a membership or you buy this NFT and it gives you. But hopefully the value creation, which is part of why I love the idea of this, like, and Wealth Build being the name of the company, is like buying assets. They're buying an asset in and of itself. Right, and I
Yeah.
think that's
Absolutely.
something, and that's hard for a lot of Latinos. Look, back in when I started, My Money, My Future, one of the reasons why was that we had just seen the numbers, the data coming out of the last crash, right? Where you had over 50% of Black and Latino communities lost their wealth because um, they were so embedded in the real estate market, right? So almost all their wealth was tied up in their home, and that's
Mm-hmm.
very natural. It's something that we see all the time. Latinos, you do what you know. And
Yeah.
we know real estate, meaning like we're like, oh, you buy a home, you pay for it, and then you go buy another home, right?
Like,
That's the kind of, for us, that's always been the aspirational intergenerational wealth piece, is that you go and buy a home and then maybe you buy
mhm.
two. Um, that's fine, and real estate should be part of your portfolio. But the reason that so that, like, the white community essentially was able to rebound from that crash was that they had diversified. So yes, there
Mm.
was some real estate, but there was also all of these stocks and bonds and equities, and those all came back. And so, like,
Right.
that's the key, is that how do we start diversifying our portfolios and getting into these spaces. And I do think I already see a lot more Latinos in crypto. I will say this though, I think I'm still very skeptical that we have to be careful. Like, you don't want the last thing we want is to bring people into crypto to buying NFTs that are like $10,000, and then all of a sudden that thing
Yeah.
has no value because there's no
Right.
guarantee. People that have been in these spaces, they have money to lose. Let's be honest,
Mhm.
they do. They have money to lose. So this is not for somebody who's risk adverse.
But it could be, and that's what I love too about what you said about coming in and teaching even the idea of buying an asset. Like my personal story in 2014, I first bought ETH, crypto, and or I'm sorry, Bitcoin, and little tiny bit,
Mhm.
right? Like nothing, but like someone convinced me that I should try this thing, and actually they sent me $100 worth of it, and then so you just but you learn like, okay, this is now an asset and it grows, and um, it's worth investing a little, at least some percentage, blah, blah, all the basics. My point in saying that is like, even just teaching that asset collection mentality that grows over time in your portfolio, like if you can do that by saying, hey, your membership to your financial advice
Mhm. Yeah.
grows, and you think about it that way, and also along the way you're learning that there's other things that are worth investing in that are not just a house, etc. Like that's where I think the bridge between content and actual financial building is so powerful and can be leveraged with Web3 or not, whatever, but with what you're building
Hmm.
specifically, that gets me excited for our community. I think
Yeah.
that's really powerful.
And the content is
And so
really, it's important. I mean, you asked that question. So how do you move from content to kind of product essentially, right?
yeah,
And one of the things that I noticed, and we were early, obviously, like I said, and I think we had focused on content, and then we're building the product, and we got a lot of people like, oh, you can't do, but like nobody will pay for content anymore. Content's dead, blah blah blah. And it was interesting because then, as you've seen, and I've been in this long enough to see these lots of these companies grow, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting because they're all focused on content now. That the
yeah,
product isn't enough. The product will get somebody in, and if it's good enough, they'll stay. But at the end of the day, they want more. I mean, look at take Betterment for example, right? Great product, robo advisor for those who don't want to think about it, turn it on, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, they had to get into different places. They had to go
mhm,
360, right? It was content. It was, oh, let's have 401ks for small businesses. Let's bring on real financial advisors, right? So we have always thought about being 360. The problem is
mhm,
that a lot of venture capitalists want you to do one thing, right? And they
mhm.
don't understand integration. And we knew for our community, if we didn't have content and just had a product, it's not going to be the brand I want it to be. I just know it won't. Like it has to be about a brand. Latinos are they're very community oriented and they're very dedicated to brands, right? I mean,
Mhm.
look at Wells Fargo. I mean, they've screwed up many times. I mean, Latinos, most of their mortgages are with Wells Fargo if you live in
Yeah,
California.
yeah,
So part of that is like, how do we build that? And I think the content, both, and again, content widely, not just, we're talking about live events, engagement strategies, one on ones. I'm literally on podcasts or speaking like every week. And I think part of
that's
that is
awesome.
because people want to hear from someone that looks like them, sounds like them, and has the same story, because that builds that kind of trust and authenticity. And I talk a lot about this around authenticity being the new currency in marketing, right? And you can't buy
Mhm,
that. You can't buy it.
mhm.
And so you can, whether you put money towards an agency or you bring someone on, you can't just like, you can't make it pink. You can't just put it in Spanish. It has to really be authentic. And I think that I'm seeing more of that, which is great. And
Yeah, and
you know,
just to add to that, when you layer on the blockchain part, it becomes even more important, both in the sense that in some ways you could argue that almost all of Web3 at the moment is content. I mean, there's function, but it's content to start with, and then secondly, everything is verifiable, right? So the old playbook of pretending, or pretending is the wrong, that's too harsh of a word, but you know what I mean,
right,
like
yeah.
using for promotion,
Mhm.
that it really doesn't work, especially when the community becomes more educated and is able to look just like a layer deeper
Right,
into what's happening. So yeah, I think
right.
that's exactly, it's always been true, but it's like becoming even more highlighted, I'd say.
Right. And I think people, I mean, even when you think about influencer marketing, like that's something I kind of hope goes away in some ways.
Mm,
And I think that with Web3 or, sort of blockchain, I think it will, because what happens, we want to make people owners. You want people to have a real stake. And I think that's the key, is that, again, whether it's through a DAO or an NFT or whatever, what you want is to have people truly invested in your brand, and
right.
they want to have a voice. And so we have a number of creative ideas around how we're going to build that out inside of the platform and using the token, right? So that's the other thing. You're building wealth
Mm,
as you're taking action, as you're engaging, because, and then the more, and obviously that then creates network effects for us, which is more people using the token. It has its own
right.
value outside of our universe.
Well, Rose, this has been great. I appreciate you so much explaining all of this and going into this deeply with us. What, just as the last question, what has you? There's a million things we've talked about, and you have your company and all those things. But in terms of promotion, in terms of content, what has you most excited right now as you're going forward and getting the word out there about your new business?
I think what has me excited also has me nervous, which is the possibility of really being a truly Web3 company in finance that is applicable to real people, right? There's tons of DeFi out there. Very few of those DeFi companies, though, like I can explain to someone and be like, oh, this is how it benefits you. I mean,
Hmm.
between people in finance, yeah, there's tons of great application, but I want to create something where people are like, oh, I get what they're doing, and that makes sense, and I could use that, and yet it's
Yeah.
all of these things that we're talking about. It's blockchain, it's DeFi, it's Web3, it's participatory, transparent, all of those things. But I want to make a real use case in finance for all of this. And that's my challenge, right? And so it gets me very excited. I literally the money metaverse that we're trying to build out is totally possible. Um, and let's see though, let's see what the challenges are in fundraising as a woman of color in Web3. I mean, I'm already hearing Ether just had their conference in Denver, and I'm already hearing that there was like, where are the women of color?
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be super interesting to see. Like you said, there's definitely a lot more talk around it and the importance of it than really ever. And so now we have the tools to facilitate that, but we'll see if it actually ends up coming through. I appreciate you so much spending time with us. Where can people follow all the stuff that you're working on and follow you?
Yeah, probably the best way to follow is just to go on Twitter. I'm dinero_diva. Um, that's where you
We'll obviously link.
yeah, you can follow me there. You can still follow the My Money My Future Instagram account. We're gonna, it'll be rebranded a little bit, but we're gonna kind of continue that brand element. We really see My Money My Futures bringing in more of the media stuff. We're also
Cool.
launching a new campaign, so follow us on Instagram to get news about that. It's called the Thrive campaign to really focus on solutions for closing the racial wealth gap. And yeah, and I'm happy to be back when we're launched and tell you more.
Oh yeah, we'd love that. That'd be great. We'll do that for sure. Well, thank you so much, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Great. Thanks so much.